Good evening, everybody. Welcome to First Church of Religious Science, First Center of Religious Science here in New York City. Welcome to our Louise class, our self-healing class. We now have an audience all over the world. We're here in Manhattan on West 84th Street, and you're welcome to join us in person or be a part of our larger hybrid community, which is now people all over the country. This evening, our title for our Hay class is The Magic of Spiritual Work. Initially, this was conceived as doing the work, but whenever we talk about that subject, people, they think, oh my God, work. And, people resist work. But we're going to talk about the magic of the work, the spiritual work tonight. This is our weekly self-healing class. Sometimes you'll hear us refer to it as the Hay class or the Holmes class. I'm Greg. I'm the pastor here at the center. Again, welcome everybody. This lesson, those of you who are on the Zoom, which are most of you right at the moment, you can interact afterwards with us and say hello. I'm from Arkansas. I'm from Brooklyn. I'm from Alabama. I'm from London, wherever you're from, if you want to. You don't have to share, but people really find it, they like hearing from one another. So if you can, please do. So we do our commenting after the lesson. There's also a chat most of the time that's running. This self-healing class has been going on for years. I started teaching this material, presenting it back in the late 80s, right after the book came out. And I've been running and facilitating a group every week of every year since. It's coincidental that I wound up here in New York at this center where I can continue the work that was done here initially when Louise Hay herself was taking classes at our center. So please tune in with us each week. You're able now to listen to our lessons on a rebroadcast on Facebook and on YouTube. We have a 24-hour-a-day YouTube live presentation going on where oftentimes you'll find other people on the same time you are watching the same lesson, and there's an opportunity often to interact that way also. So as we move forward, and I notice this group is growing and growing from week to week, both in terms of our Zoom attendance and also our larger attendance now on the other platforms. I'm realizing that a lot of you are growing together with this community. You're doing your spiritual work, and we're noticing that it's showing up because we're hearing about your demonstrations and that you're now achieving greater happiness, more joy, more health, and success. And that's always been our intention. I absolutely know that this is paying off for many of you. Jimmy and I are getting comments by the dozens now every week. Sazu, who's maintaining some of our social platforms, and the other technicians who are here, give us your comments, and we call back the people who need callbacks. And it's really it's wonderful to hear how the teaching is helping so many people. It's wonderful to know that many of you are interacting with one another, and you're putting our lessons to work. Many of you are repeating back to us some of my best lines, and it's always wonderful. It's wonderful because I'm passing on to you some other people's best lines that have been passed on to me over the past, 20 or 30 years. I've had extraordinary teachers, and whatever I'm passing on comes from either my years of study and or my experience facilitating this material, or some of these great teachers. So again, I started these workshops in somewhere in late 87, or maybe it was 88, presenting self-healing material to people who came in at a time where they really needed healing. Louise, again, was a practitioner here at our center, and the healing work that she started, you'll all be happy to know, is ongoing. Some of you have been with it for years. Some of you are new to it. Some of you who are younger have just found it. Wherever you tune into our call, I'll say that you're coming at the perfect time. The important thing to understand is there is real change and growth that's occurring in many people on the call. I know a lot of you love to hear each other after the lesson, and you're really cheering people on as they're making these discoveries and they're coping with life's challenges, and they're utilizing the tools that we teach every week. For those of you who stay involved and stay plugged in and who are actually practicing the teaching, great things are in store for you. I've always known that the teaching itself is the star. It's the thing. We've had some good teachers. I've had good teachers. I think I present the material very well and clearly, having worked with it so long. But, the teachers are not the stars. It is the teaching. And these lessons, to the extent you can bring them into your being and practice them and listen to them over and over again, they can, in fact, heal your life. Ernest Holmes said that we have the power. And more than that, these lessons, the more you listen to them and take them into your being, your soul, these lessons are going to remind you that you are valuable, that you are important. And when you come here, we're going to remind you that you're here to express yourself and express life always in greater terms. And you're here to have a wonderful life. I've been interacting and observing our students for many years now. And I was a therapist for years before. And I've noticed over the years, some of you disappear for a few weeks and then come back. And you'll say, I was doing so well and I left, and now I'm back. And that's all. And you get plugged right in, and that's what's important. Some of you love the idea of the changes that can happen. And you're all excited about it. Then I notice some people just don't have the willingness to change. And if you're hanging on to old ideas that are working against you, then it's an issue of consciousness. Meaning you've been given the new information and you find yourself stuck. And the only reason you're stuck is because some of you are unwilling to embrace the new. And we understand that people are in the perfect place, perfect time all the time. So all we can do is know that people are in the right place, and we'll be here when they're ready to return. And for the rest of you who steadily tune in, that's much like, as I say often, like having an insurance policy where you pay in installments. The more you plug in and stay in the conversation, and let the information just wash over you, and you'll start to see changes. You'll be, as we say in other programs, amazed before you're halfway through. So however you got here, and some of you ask the question or say, I don't know how I got here, just know that your being here is not a mistake. It's not an accident. You have what we call a divine appointment. So maybe you're coming back, and if you're one of those, I'm saying welcome back. I have family members, incidentally, who are stuck in their ruts, and they've been listening to me for 30 years, but they still rather stay stuck in a resentment where they will nurture and nurse them. And when I see this happening with people, Ernest Holmes' Course in Miracles and different books have called these places where we get stuck. There are ancient hurts, one book will say. They are if you think of a ship, it's the weight that holds us down, the resentments, the anger, the fearful thinking. All of that stuff, Ernest Holmes called it the corpses, the dead wood. And if you can just think of any of those images which are not too pretty, you could release any one of them. You could release the corpses. You could release the ancient hurts, the grievances, the resentments. Any and all of that, you have the power to release and let go, if you really wanted to. But see, some people they hang on to that stuff. Now, I'm reminded of Ernest Holmes, who said, suffering is not God ordained. So what he was saying there is, if you're suffering, that is not of God. It's not God's will for you to suffer. Just the opposite. So Bill Wilson said misery is optional. So When you come into this class week by week, we're going to say to you in so many ways, we say it in different ways, that it's entirely up to you. You know, the universe is supporting you going forward, and the universe supports you thriving. You were meant to express life and to do so in freedom. You shouldn't care too much what people think or say. You don't wish anybody harm, but you're here as a free agent. You're here to express your life and to do so, hopefully with a sense of fun. If you're having to look to the right and left and be worried and overly concerned about what people are thinking about you, and you have this sense of you're not okay and you're not enough and you don't have your own voice, well, then I'm happy you're here, because we're going to keep telling you how wonderful you are and that your voice is important. And just as the universe presents me with lessons every week, everyone here has things in their life that show up as lessons, and they're all there for you to grow and for you to evolve. So again, it's wonderful for you to be here tonight in this healing discussion. And we now see that many of you are watching the lessons not just a second time, but a good number of you are watching these very lessons a third time. And that reminds me of me. I used to buy a cassette tape. Some of you don't even know what that is anymore, but it was a cassette tape, and I would spend, I don't know, $7 or $10 for it. And I would listen to it 2 or 3 times every week, because I would really want to get that information and understand it. Today you can listen to the lesson a second or third time on YouTube or Facebook at no cost to you. So this is great. Take advantage of it. Go to our Facebook page or go to our YouTube channel and listen. Join us live. However you find us, I'm glad you found us, and congratulations for being here, focusing on being committed to improving and to growing and evolving, and being committed to letting go of your old stories and your old tapes, and congratulations on the willingness to do the spiritual work. And congratulations again for your efforts in self-improvement and self-healing. All of us, every last one of us, are evolving. All of us are spiritual beings, and all of us are moving forward. You might say, well, you know people who are not moving forward. And the fact of the matter is, people are where they are, and everybody's in the right place, doing the right thing at the time. We're not here to compare ourselves to anybody. Some of you, from a recent song, are longing for change. You're tough living, and you're getting disgusted living in shallow waters. Are you longing for more? The song asks. And the fact of the matter is, you can have more. You can have this deep life, a life of connection, a life of opportunity. It's all there happening to you. And, in the sense, it's in your life, it's in your consciousness. So whatever is there that might look like a challenge, it's actually there to bring you to a higher place. What we ask of you in doing the work is for you to be the guardian at the gate, meaning you have to pay attention to what you're thinking about all day long. If you're thinking all day long of doom and gloom, and you feel it's over for you, and if you say it's over, you believe it's over, then I promise you it's over. So if you want to have a better life, a more powerful life, a greater life, Emerson suggested that we hitch our wagons to the stars, meaning think great thoughts. Train yourself to think great thoughts. Stay on the beam. If you find yourself in a slump, find a way to get yourself out of it, and raise your sights higher, higher, higher. If you're vigilant about seeing the good in all circumstances, then you're going to experience great changes, and much sooner than you would think. The process of learning is always the same, no matter what the subject is. You start wherever you are. You might remember learning to ride a bicycle when you were a child. You had to learn how to balance. You had to get rid of the training wheels, and you started going forward. I remember vaguely trying to learn how to tie my shoelaces, and I didn't do very well at it. I was always making knots. You learn math. You might remember learning to drive a car. Mastering these everyday tasks take time. It's the same with spiritual growth. It's no different with spiritual growth. If you want to grow spiritually, it's the same idea. It takes practice. We have to become mindful of our stories, mindful of our thoughts, our thinking, mindful of what's going on within us all the time. So with spiritual growth and personal development likewise, it requires effort and practice. Whether you're learning a new program on your phone, I know I'm always working trying to learn how to do an app, or if you're trying to learn how to think in a more positive way. There's a process and a certain amount of effort that's involved to master anything. If you can imagine tonight, I had this image I drew up for this class, that you have a very big, full-length gold mirror. Maybe it's carved out of wood and it's old, and you've got this image of the gold mirror. And here it is with you, wherever you live. And now imagine that it's reflecting back to you every single one of your thoughts. The good ones, the ones that are negative, this beautiful gold mirror just reflects. That's all it does. It's so beautiful. And it reflects back to you whatever you think about, whatever you dwell on. If you remember that mirror, that beautiful imaginary gold mirror that you have with you where you live, this beautiful mirror that's always reflecting, if you remember that image of that mirror, you might understand how this process works. We really never get away with anything. We think that we do. You learn that very well from the essays of Ralph Waldo Emerson. It's useless to try to get over on anybody. We really never get away with anything. Life is always reflecting back to us. That's what today's lesson is really all about. It's reflecting back to us the magic of spiritual work. Or it seems like magic. It's actually law. Life, the law of life, the law of attraction, is reflecting your thoughts, your thinking back to you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's also called the law of correspondence. So we'll get into this a little bit more today. It's a fact, quite honestly, that nobody likes to hear. Most people are caught up in their consciousness, and they're caught up in their stories. And a lot of blaming going on, and a lot of talking about and thinking about what they're fearing getting older. They're fearing their health conditions, or they're dealing with problems with relationships and jobs, and they're caught up in this consciousness of separation and fear. When you're really feeling connected with Source, most of that stuff just disappears. When you can bring in the awareness of Source or God, or however you want to language it, when you bring that into your awareness, and you have in your mind this idea, in your heart, that I am as the universe created me, I'm one with it, I'm whole, I'm complete, I am as it created me, in the light, in the love, in the glory. When you bring that into your awareness, and you know that you're one with it, then you're not thinking fearful thoughts, and you're not thinking of separation, and you're not in the blame game. Quite honestly, you're not thinking a great deal about other people. You're in a place of happiness and joy because you're realizing that you are one with this power. You're in a place of contemplation. See, we show up as positive people often in our day-to-day living. We might be wearing a mask where we act like we're confident, we're content. But beneath the surface, many of us carry deep programming that's a lot more negative than we want to admit. We've all been conditioned to view the world through the lens of lack, or many of us have this sense that there's not enough for us, or there won't be enough for us, there won't be enough for our families. So we have a belief in scarcity, and for the most part, there's not a lot of trust in the process of life itself. So from a young age, people learn how to be pleasing, how to be acceptable to society, how to fit in, and often we prioritize getting our parents to like us and approve of us, and having people, give you a pat on the head, say, good girl, good boy, and all that. So at a very young age, we've learned the art of pleasing other people and conforming to what people expect of us. This is neither good nor bad. This is simply the way it most of the time works. And we learn to strive for success as defined by the people who brought us up. In doing this, or in doing so, we've somewhat disconnected ourselves from our truest selves. Because you're like a little being of light and wonder, a spiritual being. You came in here to thrive, and before you know it, you've fallen into a pattern where you've been taught not to trust certain things and people, and this lack of trust is rooted in a collective belief that we somehow must try to control everything, all these aspects of our lives. Many of you on the call have been in your life what we'll call worriers. I'm not saying warriors, I'm saying worriers. You worry about this, you worry about that. And we fear the unknown. Many fear change, many fear uncertainty. And when you're in that state where you feel separate and cut off, then you're living in separation. So what we always want to do in New Thought circles is to reconnect, remembering and forgetting. Well, we want to remember that we're one with the one. We want to have a sense of connection. And we work on that here. We have to practice it, though, because we have innate spirituality, meaning we have this source, this life-giving energy that's in us, but we forget about it. We forget about our deeper connection with it. And as you learn to know you're connected with it, and you understand that it's in everything and everyone, then you're coming back into the garden, the place of remembrance, that you are, in fact, an individualization of this God life that we all share in. But when you're unaware, you're like the prodigal child. You're off in the far country, and you're feeling alone and like the world is against you. And if you're living your life that way, it's a sense of separation, and that can bring on stress and anxiety and a sense of people are out to get you, and you can go into all kinds of stories about other people as being wrong or bad. And you can judge yourself in ways that will say that you're not okay and there's something wrong with you. So throughout the world, most of the people don't know what we teach here. Most people believe in separation. And you come into a place like this, and we're going to tell you everything. We'll say like Louise Hay said, all is well. And we'll keep reminding you that you are one with the one. And we'll remind you that you are an individualization of this life, and you're connected with it and with every other living thing. So we have transformative truth. We have the power to rewrite our story. Doesn't matter what you've done for the past 10, 20, 30 years or longer, you can start again today. And you can do it all differently. By doing this spiritual work, you can unlearn the patterns of fear and separation, and instead you can begin to cultivate deep trust in the process of life itself. Louise Hay famously said, "I trust the process of life." We can rediscover our inner guidance. We can learn to be still and know that it's there. We can connect with it. We can commune with it. We can live with this place, knowing that all that it has, you have. All that the Father has is yours. Whatever Spirit has, you are heir to it. This work that we do is an inner work. It's a journey of self-discovery. It's a journey of healing and transformation. If you do it, if you stay on the course, it will lead to a life of connection, authenticity, purpose, and joy. We might wonder, because you think of these lessons, you might wonder, why do I do these things to myself? Why am I engaged in all this self-defeating behavior and this stinking thinking and self-defeating thoughts? And it's a good question. The first thing to understand is there's nothing wrong with you. It's just habituated thought. We've adapted, since we're children, certain ways of acting and being and behaviors. When we come into this class, we do a lot of work to identify these old tapes, the things that we tell ourselves, the ways we criticize ourselves. We become more mindful of how we are critical of others. We're mindful of how we're critical of the world. Because we know, however we are judging life and judging people, it's not about them, it's about us. So most of us, as we come into the classes, realize that we're always working on ourselves. We do inner work. We do our work in consciousness. We do our work in mind. I often quote Louise from the book You Can Heal Your Life when she talks about that all-important inner dialogue. And even though many of us have learned to, we've worked with it. We've learned to tame it somewhat. We've gotten rid of the word should. We've become a little bit more kind, and we've become a little bit more generous and a bit more compassionate. And we've become less judgmental. Even with all the work we've done, there's always still more to do. I don't imagine that, I think we'll be doing work on ourselves to the day we make our transition. So I don't think we graduate, but we take a couple classes. Life is about lessons, and life is about spiritual growth. It's about evolution, and we're all here in it together. We're evolving and growing. Some would say we're evoluting along. I know we've made progress. I know I've made progress, and I'm also aware that there's much more to do. So we've done great work, and we're all living now, those of us who've been at it a little while, in greater harmony and peace. You might be noticing the increased peace and happiness. And then you might notice out of nowhere, everything blows up and everything goes to hell. And that's not fun. Occasionally that happens. And maybe there may be a part of us that still reacts and roars and feels hurt. I know. I listen to the listeners, and when it happens, there's disappointment when that happens. It's happened to me. I think it happens to all of us. And that's when we need to slow down and take that pause and love ourselves even more. So just about every author I've read and I recite and I use to make up the lessons are all essentially saying the same thing. All the ones I work with every week show us that we have incredible power available to us. We can heal anything. We can transmute anything. Louise, who everybody loves, commented by saying the bottom line for everybody she ever talked to or worked with was they didn't feel like that they were okay. They felt like there was something missing or that they're not enough. And she used to ask, well, whose standards are you trying to live up to? And usually they were parental or societal. We can heal situations in our life. We can heal the conditions in our life. We can improve our health. We can we can become more wealthy, more healthy. We can improve our relationships across the board. And we can live much happier, more productive lives if we really, really want to. Willingness is the key. So do you really want a better life? Do you want greater health? Would you like more wealth? Would you like more contentment? Would you like more peace? Would you like to live in joy and with freedom? If the answer is yes to these things, you can definitely have these things. Most of the multitude or the masses at large feel inadequate. They don't know that they can have a great life. They don't know that they're free to think and to move and to create. And all this comes from their childhood years, programming, by well-intentioned families. And many people are caught up in the whole notion that trying to improve their circumstances in the outer world. So they try to gather more material things. The more they can accumulate, the more they think that they will feel better. Acquisition of material things rarely brings lasting happiness. People nevertheless try to do that, or they try to look better, or they're very concerned with how people perceive them. In social media, there's an obsession to be liked, to be followed, to be loved on media. It's like we're always trying to make a statement and prove that we're good enough and liked. Or worse, we're trying to show people that we're superior, which would be worse. Where does all this come from? If you want to heal your life, if you truly want to transform, then you want to do this work that we're talking about week by week. You want to stay tuned with us. Because what we do, what we say, what we obsess over, what we worry about definitely shows up in our life. Remember that beautiful golden mirror that you have, the imaginary mirror. Whatever you're obsessing about, thinking about, focused on, shows up. Emerson said it far more eloquently when he said, "What you do speaks so loudly I can't hear a word you say." So whatever it is that's living inside of us is always playing outside of us. It's always seen. Nobody can ever cover it all up, at least not all the time. The author of the Four Agreements explains that we have made so many agreements since the time we're just little kids within our family structures, our society, our religions. In our brief life, we've formed many contracts, or what we call agreements from the Four Agreements. We've learned lessons from the time we're little boys and girls. We've learned how to be acceptable, how to get our parents to reward us. We've learned how to be pleasing. We've learned how to be nice. We've given up a great deal of our authenticity along the way. Sometimes we wonder, how did I get to this place? Where we might even be remembering a time where we seemed more free. We've learned what people expect us to be, and we've learned how people expect us to act, and what people wanted from us. So that's it in a nutshell. That's how it all happens. But the thing to remember is we were all born here to be free. If you can imagine yourself over the years, over time, just imagine you're this young child, boy or girl, just little being, and you were a bundle of light and joy, and over time you've become bound. The image that we usually use is bound with strings that are circling us, wrapping around us, our limbs, our body, our neck. Just little strings, these tiny little threads circling all around us. Do they make you feel free? No, of course not. Do you think that you would be moving around with joy, grace, and ease with all these little things tying us down? Do you have resentments? There's a question I ask everybody on the call. Do you find yourself frustrated at times and upset? And the answer is going to be, of course, yes. The answer for most people is yeah. If they were willing to be 100% honest, if they were willing to be bare their souls, most people, however, are afraid of being that honest. And so you can see how it happens. We give pieces of ourselves away. We try to please other people. To our younger audience, I remember Louise Hay saying, don't blame your parents. Your parents were always doing the best that they can with the information, the understanding, and the awareness they have. And we routinely remind everybody of that. You either know now or you will learn along the way that people did the best they could with you. Now, you might have been given a lot of initial messages from your family or your extended family that maybe the messages weren't that great. But this is where it usually happens with this messaging, from the people that raised us. And this is where we come up with these agreements that if you ever read the book, The Four Agreements, you'll understand. Those are the things that tie you up. Nobody does it intentionally, at least in every case. People have good intent. But they form our beliefs. And here we are now, we're adults. We're on a call like this, and we're coming together in a spiritual discussion. And we're here to look at it all differently. We're not trying to, again, explain our life away in terms of what somebody did to us and all of that. We're on this call because we have the willingness to love ourselves a bit and to understand that even with our faults, that we love, accept, and approve of ourselves exactly as we are. And we have the willingness to think about the things that go on inside of our head, our thinking, what it's been like being us. We have the willingness to release a lot of this. Strings, if you want to call them strings or think of them as strings. We have the willingness to release them one at a time, one thought at a time, one belief at a time. And we have the willingness to replace each and every one with more empowering thoughts. When you're coming to a place of self-acceptance and self-love that Louise spoke of so often, when you're getting to that place where you're loving yourself more and more, and you're never going to criticize yourself, if you're really working on loving yourself more and stopping the incessant criticism, what you're becoming is a person who is seeing the good in every kind of situation, in every kind of circumstance. You'll understand that people are doing the best they can. You'll understand that you're doing the best you can. And in the process, you're going to be neutralizing the racket of thoughts and the criticism that lives inside that creates havoc within you. So we do our work in mind. We do our work on the most important person in the world, which is ourselves. If we really learn to love ourselves, I promise you're going to be a much nicer person to the world. So we have this aspect of ourselves which some people call our shadow, and we want to learn how to embrace it, look at it, love it, accept it. And we understand how it happened, how it developed. And we might say to ourselves, I lovingly embrace myself more and more every day. And as you do, all these battered places will come to light. And you realize, though you've made mistakes, you're not a mistake. You're a person who has continually been moving forward and moving through all these limiting beliefs. And you're exchanging your lesser ideas for the greater. When you were a young child, you had all this light and all this joy and spontaneity in you. You were just completely full of joy, and you could play and you could laugh and respond authentically because you had not yet been socialized. Over time, that light, that radiance, has all but disappeared. It's still there, of course. But again, like the strings, we have all these things that get in the way. As we learned how to be more pleasing and acceptable in the world, we were covering ourselves up more and more with layers of this type of smoky thread. And it was hard for people to see the light because we've created all this stuff around us. The work that we do here every week, the self-healing work, is clearing away the negativity, the stinking thinking, the smoke, the blind spots, clearing it away. Clearing away our critical projections, our self-assessments, our blame. And the work here is always letting go of it, letting go of all these false ideas and false beliefs. The work is replacing the old agreements and notions and making a deep new covenant with yourself, a deep new agreement that no matter what, I'm going to love myself. And I'm never going to criticize myself. And I'm going to repeat, as Louise Hay said often, I am good enough. I love, accept, and approve of myself. I'm good enough, and you might add, I love, accept, and approve of myself. Our founder was quoted as saying, that's Holmes, find me one person who's so redeemed from the bondage of self, and I will find a savior, a redeemer, a person that I will want to commune with. So be that person who's redeemed from the bondage of self. Be that person who loves, accepts, and approves of yourself. You might say to yourself, I realize that one is a being of light. Is it easy? No, not always. Some of you were commenting about this recently in a class. You were commenting that this change is tough. And it can be. But the greater thing is to realize that you can heal your life. You can change your life. Okay? Can you consciously evolve? Absolutely yes. So is it worth it? Is doing the work worth it? What do you think? Of course it is. You can turn your whole life around. Starting here, starting now, starting today. And as you do this inner work, you're going to see magic, or what looks like magic to you, just by having the willingness to do just a little bit more. You'll be lifted up in consciousness to a point where you'll start to see everything in a new way. Here's the thing, though, everybody. It's entirely up to you. It always is. You have the power deep at the center of your being. You have this power to move mountains, to heal your life, to transmute anything. And so it is. And so you have this power, and I want to hear how you intend to use it to make magic out of your life and to have incredible demonstrations. So I'm going to see you at the other side of the break, and Jimmy and I are going to hear your ideas, your thoughts. And we want to know what it's been like being you, so please share. Or if you simply want to say hello, where you're from. So we'll join you in just a minute. Thank you.